At Arizona State University, we've made online education better, smarter, and more personalized, so you can go further in your aspiring field.
I decided to pursue medicine once I realized that ASU did have the online program for biological sciences. You're still required to learn the same curriculum. You're still being tested on the same content that anyone would be tested on in person. The comprehensiveness of the program prepared me so well for medical school.
Explore over 350 plus programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
The Mario Rosenstock Podcast. Thanks to Hum. Finance made easy when you shop tech, electrical, appliances, kitchens, and much more. Flexify Europe Limited, trading as Hum, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Coming up on this episode of the Mario Rosenstock Podcast.
Swift was writing at a time when it was a dangerous profession. And if you wrote anything that was seen by the authorities as being seditious, they would have no problem tying you up and you could be left there for a day or days. And sometimes if you were really bad, they'd cut your ears off or you could end up in prison. We're now in a time where people get cancelled. They don't get tied up and have their ears cut off and all that sort of thing. But, you know, they do in a kind of a more...
which is a form of excommunication.
True.
You know, it's like a religious fatwa.
So I got an email a few weeks ago that started as follows. Hello, Mario. You're a great satirist. Woohoo! Thanks very much. Would you like to know more about the original and greatest Irish satirist, the most famous of them all, Jonathon Swift? The email went on to outline in detail the fascinating history of one of Ireland's most famous writers, the author of Gulliver's Travels, none other than Jonathon Swift. This book is hands down the most successful book by an Irish author of all time. And, interestingly, it was full of digs at the monarchy, colonialism and other injustices that Swift himself felt compelled to speak about in this and many other of his works. But it was a very dangerous time to be anti-establishment, and so he was never able to put his own name to his writing, would you believe? And what interested me was how, in some parts of the world, things haven't changed a bit even to this day, including even in the US, where the Trump administration tries to shut down TV hosts that satirize him, to wit, Jimmy Kimmel most recently. So we got in touch with the author of the email, a writer, performer, and former political strategist called Gerry Mullins, and invited him to tell me more about this fascinating man, Jonathon Swift, the remarkable life he led, freedom of speech, back then and today, and lots more.
He's after having a big feed of wine, big full bladder, and someone wakes him up that night and says the royal palace is on fire. So he runs over and he extinguishes the fire by unleashing his fire hose, in other words, pissing all over the Queen's palace and into her bedroom. And that was his little dig at Queen Anne. Basically what he was saying to the British authority was, you have done everything bad to these Irish people. There's no great immoral leap in what you've already done in terms of stealing everything from them and humiliating them and starving them in order to go and eat their babies as well. You know, you've already entered that particular zone. It was like a human zoo, and people on a Sunday afternoon would get dressed up and for a bit of entertainment go down and have a look at these people tied to the wall and screaming and shouting and all that sort of thing. And so Swift was chaplain there, and he realised how it shouldn't be done. And then he comes over to Ireland, and 30 years later, when he's got all this money and he's doing up his will and all that sort of thing, he says, no, we're not going to have it like it was in London. We're going to do it different over here.
Gerry, as I found out, is a fantastic storyteller, and he's a mine of information on this fascinating subject, and I hope you enjoy our conversation, which is coming up very shortly, right after, well, it's the film everybody's talking about, guys. Have you been to see it yet? Oh my God, everybody wants to see this one.
It's the film biopic of 2026. One man who had it all. The fans, the millions, the moves, the hat. This is Michael.
It's all very well for you above in the Dáil in Dublin, but I'm standing up for the small men of Keegarvan.
He came from nothing to rule a kingdom.
JCB, easy as 1, 2, 3. Rent it to you from me, JCB. 1, 2, 3, choose Healy Replantyre.
A man who fought for his county and loved every village within it.
Finish. It's gorgeous if you haven't seen it. Dingle has fungi, Killarney is nice, but there is one village, take my advice, it's feed it. Just feed it. Go there, feed it.
A man who made a fortune.
Don't stop till you get enough, keep on. With the cash, don't stop. Don't stop till you get enough, keep on. With the cash, don't stop. Don't stop till you get enough.
And who fell out with his family to achieve his dream.
Denny, are you okay? Denny, are you okay? Are you okay, Denny? Denny, are you okay? No! Denny, are you okay? Are you okay, Denny? Denny, are you okay? No! Denny, are you okay? Are you okay, Denny? Denny, are you okay? No! Denny, are you okay? Are you okay, Denny? No!
Featuring a stunning duet with Micheál Martin.
I don't understand the way you think, saying it's your way and not mine.
Well?
Resignations and your silly speech, really just a waste of time, because it's mine.
Well, I have
Michael.
to disagree.
The doggone doll is mine.
Micheál, I'm a lover, not a fighter.
Michael is Michael at his peak.
Darkness falls across the land. The carbon tax is close at hand. But Michael's here with a bag of coal to save y'all's house and save y'all's soul.
One man against an entire government.
Because you're bad, you're bad, you know it.
Deputy Healy Ray.
You know you're bad,
Deputy
you're
Healy Ray.
bad, you know it.
Deputy Healy Ray.
Michael, coming soon to a parish hall near you.
And brand new comedy every week on the Mario Rosenstock podcast. And get in touch with me, Mario Rosenstock, at gmail.com, like Gerry did. And that's how he's actually on this podcast, because he got in touch with me directly. I read them all and I get back to most of them. So the weather's getting better, folks. The days are getting longer. And you might want to be out there feeling good, looking good, and keeping track of your health and fitness. And so, if you're in the market for some fitness gear, wearables, or beauty products, you should know that Hum has got you covered. Hum is a finance company who provide flexible payment solutions for customers of some of Ireland's most popular retailers. They can help you make your purchases and pay back in bite-sized, easy payments. It really couldn't be easier. And we're delighted on the Mario Rosenstock podcast, and I'm delighted that Hum have not only decided to get involved in podcasting, but have chosen me, this podcast, to be their partner. We're delighted to have them on board the Mario Rosenstock podcast, and thank you, Hum, for getting involved. And if you want to be sure to get new episodes straight into your inbox, please press the follow button on Apple or Spotify, or whatever platform you're listening to on this. It's just a click of a button for you, but it's a big deal for us. It really helps. And remember, we don't charge for our podcast. We don't have premium content. All our content is premium and free to you. And thanks for coming on board, because you are the most important element of this podcast. So get it out there to more people who might enjoy it, and just like you. Thank you. So it's time to meet my special guest on this episode, Gerry Mullins, and find out about one of Ireland's most famous ever historical figures, Jonathon Swift. A very interesting figure indeed he was, way ahead of his time. So much so that even though he lived 300 years ago, he comes across like somebody that you might meet today. And indeed, a lot of the struggles that he faced around freedom of speech and speaking out against power also feel remarkably familiar to society today. I hope you enjoy.
Gerry, welcome to the podcast, and thank you very much for coming in.
Well, thank you.
The reason you're here is because, I invite a lot of my listeners to freely send me an email at mariorosenstock@gmail.com, and I read them all, and I get back to the most of them. But I didn't get back to you in the first one you sent, and you sent me another one going, listen, I know you haven't got back to me about this, so I'll take it. That I don't know what I'll take it as, but anyway, if you have second thoughts, and I went, well, that's interesting now. And the subject matter that you wrote to me about was really interesting, because it's about satire, and it's about satirists. And of course, as you pointed out in your email, I'm a satirist, and I work on radio and television and all that sort of stuff. And we might be interested, would you be interested in talking, you said, about what would be the king of satire in this country, the original satirist, 300 plus years ago. His name was Jonathon Swift. Gerry, why should we be interested in Jonathon Swift, and tell us a little bit about him?
So, everyone has heard of Jonathon Swift, right? Everyone has heard of Gulliver's Travels, and we're all familiar with one part of Gulliver's Travels, which is where Gulliver arrives on the land of the Lilliputians, the little people, you know, and pretty much that's it. And we're kind of intimidated in the same way as we are about Samuel Beckett and various other people who we know are great writers, but the last thing we want to do is sit down and read them, you know. And Swift is definitely in that category. This old guy with a big old wig that used to appear in our £10 notes. Do you remember those?
Yeah.
You know, and so I got into him a couple of years ago. I ended up writing a musical on Swift, right, called Savage Indignation. And there you go. It's playing in Hoath Castle on the 20th of June. There you go. We get the plug in, right? On. Oh, yeah, still on. We played in Armagh last month and we're over in St. Patrick's Cathedral just before Christmas and all that. So that's still going on, you know. And it's a great little show, if I say so myself.
Is it a 2-hour show?
More like an hour and a half. Because I usually...
No break?
With no break, yeah. So I usually start off with an interview with a Swift scholar. Yeah. Usually Brendan Toomey. He's a Dr. Brendan Toomey from Trinity College. And then towards the end of the interview, it gets interrupted because this guy at the back of the room starts giving out about the noise. And who is it? Only Jonathon Swift back.
And is it all the wig and everything?
The whole wig, the whole lot, giving out about the noise and giving out to me. And then it moves on from there, and he starts to reminisce about his life. And next thing, his lady friend Stella appears. And because Swift had this long-term lady friend named Stella. And then after a while, another lady appears. Her name is Vanessa. And really what the musical is about how and what happened when Stella and Vanessa found out about each other.
Right.
You know?
So there were three in this marriage.
There were.
And did you write the songs?
Yes.
Did you?
Yeah.
And does it have musical accompaniment?
Beautiful musical accompaniment. Because I sat down with a guy called David Monroe, who is... I didn't know it at the time, but he's really one of Ireland's top arrangers and composers. I only contacted him because I needed someone to score my songs, right? You know, put them down on paper, right? And this bloke, I had trained his daughter in football for 3 years, and I just feel if I've trained anyone's daughter for 3 years, they owe me, right? And so I called him up one day and said, look, I've got a few songs here for music, would you ever give me a hand writing them down? I needed someone to put notes on the page.
Is the libretto or the words of the music, is it old style or new style?
I tried to make a new style. Now, some of it is old because I've tried to, as much as possible, take from their letters and their poems, you know, to try and make it authentic. But the last thing you want is people sitting there as if it's a Shakespearean play, listen to that old style of talking. So it's very modern in other ways. And also there's a couple little, I think the word is anachronistic jokes or whatever, you know, stuff that brings you right up to modern day language, you know. Okay,
so tell us, that's brilliant to hear this now, but tell us why, and of course it's the 300th anniversary.
So, 300th anniversary. So
of Gulliver's Travels.
Yeah. So, to me, we have lots of great writers in this country. Yeats, Wilde, Beckett, Shaw, the whole lot, right? But who is the king of them all? And in my view, it's Swift, because Swift, particularly with Gulliver's Travels, Swift is the most famous and the most influential of all the writers for the longest time. You know, perhaps not so much now, but over the 300-year trajectory since he died, he certainly has been the biggest name in Irish writing. And Gulliver's Travels is the biggest book ever to have come from this island in terms of influence and in terms of fame.
Really?
So right around the world now.
So in other words, it has more span than Ulysses?
Oh, completely.
Does it?
Completely. Ulysses, and now in some ways it's an unfair comparison because a lot of
longer time.
It's had longer time, number one, but also to a large extent people have taken that one book. Gulliver's Travels is four books, right? And in the first one he's the giant and everyone else the little people. Second one he's the little person. They're all giants, and the third one is a different thing, and fourth one is a different thing. So in reality, what's happened is that people have taken one book, the very first one, and made that into a children's movie and a children's book and all that sort of thing. But at the same time, in more libraries and in more bookstores around the world, you will find Gulliver's Travels more so than any other Irish book, more than any other Irish writer. So all the others pale into less significance.
And so tell me more about why he's so important and his significance. And for example, the dangers of the time he lived in terms of being a satirist.
So amazingly about Swift, obviously one of the most famous writers, and yet in his lifetime, hardly anything he ever wrote had his name on it. Hardly anything. He wrote books, pamphlets, letters, poems. He was writing the whole time. He was one of these people who would write every day for many hours a day. He would write about politics. He would write about love. He would write about whatever, a bit like Fintan O'Toole or something like that. You know what I mean? He was going.
Fintan will love that. I'm the great satirist. I am Jonathon Swift in Irish Times. I'm a Lilliput Pushin. I'm the king of the little people.
King of the little people.
I'm the king of the little people in the Irish Times. They are little people, and I am the great big master satirist.
Well, Fintan has a great scope. He could write about politics. He could write about the arts. He could write about this and that. And Swift was
before you go on, and I want you to go on. I just wanted to interject there briefly about Fintan, because I've told him this myself.
Right.
That the style of the way he writes his articles, I always read them, because I find that if you turn his articles upside down, it's easy to make a satirical comic sketch out of them.
What do you mean by upside down?
He basically is showing you the seriousness of what he's saying.
Right.
I kind of try and take what he's saying and put it onto audio, and I interpret what he's saying and make it an audio version, which turns into perfect satire.
Is that right?
Yeah. So the thrust of his articles, if you just get the thread of what he's saying through a lot of his articles, there is an attempt by him. Sorry, I'm being a bit mean to him now, because he's a master writer.
Completely, yeah.
He is a master writer, but he's not a superb comedian. But what he often has in his the thread of his sketch, of his I even called it a sketch, of his columns, are the nub of a great comic idea, and he doesn't fully develop it. But then I go, no, that's just perfect. You just develop that one for my purposes. But he goes on then to be much more serious in his column.
Amazing.
Yeah, but I've told him this.
Yeah.
And because I had him on the podcast twice, and he definitely has a satirical start to what he's doing. And I go, that's perfect. That's my sketch tomorrow. I just turn that inside it. Don't mention that. Just go all the way for that bit and just turn it upside down. And don't bother with the too serious bits at the end. Because I'm unlike him, I'm not trying to proselytize to people. I just want to show people stuff.
Yeah.
That's what a satirist, I think, should do. They should show.
Yes.
Not tell.
Very good.
And what Fintan's duty is as a columnist is to tell and to opine and to proselytize and to polemicize. And mine is to kind of go, look at this. Isn't that mad? And the audience should go, wow, that is mad. And it's true as well. That's what I think. So I've often found...
I'll never be able to read his columns again the same way. I'm almost thinking the two of you should team up and do some kind of a double act, you know, where he tries to introduce a serious topic with his way and you finish off the argument, you know.
So go on anyway.
Okay, so Swift then. So Swift was writing at a time when it was a dangerous profession. And if you wrote anything that was seen by the authorities as being seditious, they would have no problem tying you up. They'd call it pillaring. You know, we still use that word now. You tie you to a pillar and you could be left there for a day or days. And sometimes if you were really bad, they'd cut your ears off or you could end up in prison. And so Swift knew that. Two of his books ended up in the courts here, but he just didn't get convicted. But even when it came to like Gulliver's Travels, he spent about 5 years writing it here in Ireland. He didn't publish it in Ireland. He went across to London to get a publisher. And before he went, he had someone transcribe the whole thing in their handwriting. So it wasn't in Swift's handwriting if the document was found. He goes over to his mate Alexander Pope in London, you know, the poet. And
on our leaving.
Oh, on our leave, exactly. A rape at Loch and things like that. So he goes over to his mate Alexander Pope and says, let's find a publisher. So they settle on a guy called Benjamin Mott, Motte. And Pope had to wait until Swift was on his way back to Ireland. Pope then, in the dead of night, in the dark of night, left the first of the 4 books on the doorstep of Mott, rang the bell in the darkness, said, I'm after leaving you a great book there. And Mott says, what do you want me to do with it? Pardon me. And Alexander Pope said, read it and I'll be back here exactly this time next week. If you like it, you're going to give me, I can't remember, it was £200 or £300, something big anyway, and I'll give you the other 3 parts of it and you can publish it. So it was obviously Mott thought he was mad, but of course he read the first book and went, this is it, I want this, you know. Wow. But the thing was, we regarded it as being Gulliver's Travels by Jonathon Swift. That book did not exist. The book was actually called Travels to Several Remote Parts of the World, and the author was Lemuel Gulliver. There was no sign of Swift's name on it. And when you read into it, you read, he's got so many little jokes, almost in every paragraph, there's all these, when I say jokes, by the way, little digs, I should really say. Sometimes they're jokes, sometimes they're just funny, you know. But other times he's getting digs in left, right and centre at the royalty, at the government, at people who he had a grudge against. So, for example, one of the people who had pissed him off was Queen Anne, the monarch in Britain. Basically, he wanted to become a bishop in England, and she kind of went no for various reasons. She went no, and he got banished back to Ireland. He ended up in St. Patrick's Cathedral, who we kind of celebrate him now, you know, as being Dean of St. Patrick's Cathedral. But he did not want that job. He did not want to come back to this really impoverished nation. He wanted to be in London where the action was. So he felt very let down. So when Gulliver goes to the land of the Lilliputs, he's after having a big feed of wine, big full bladder, and someone wakes him up that night and says the royal palace is on fire. So he runs over, and the royal palace is on fire, and he extinguishes the fire by unleashing his fire hose. In other words, pissing all over the Queen's palace and into her bedroom. And that was his little dig at Queen Anne. And of course, the book then goes on that Gulliver is held for kind of a treasonous act because you're not allowed to piss into the Queen's bedroom, you know, and he saw that as being parallels with his own life. He'd done a lot to serve the monarchy and serve the government and all that, and then he felt let down. So there's all these little meanings in the book. Sometimes it's hard to pick up what they are, or sometimes they're meanings that have been lost in time and all that, but they're there all the time. And when you read it, you kind of have to get an edition that has notes at the back. Okay. It takes a while to read it because, you know...
The references.
The references, exactly. Because you're flipping back and forth. What does that mean? What does that mean? So, for example, in one of the voyages, the third one, it's the flying island of Laputa. So it's kind of a science fiction book, right? You got this flying island hovering over another island, and the flying island, the one that's hovering, is kind of controlling the ones down below. It's kind of similar to Britain controlling Ireland, kind of thing, you know. Yeah. And at one stage, the people revolted, right? And so it's a little city called Lindalino, right? And you're kind of going, okay, what's this all about? And it's the second city of the empire. Okay. And a giant river goes down through it. Yeah. Well, it looks like Dublin, but you're kind of going, what's Lindalino? Lindalino. And you see, with Swift, he'd often bring in a Latin word. You know, there might be a Latin translation or an anagram or something like that. And you're kind of looking at Lindalino and you're going, well, it can't be an anagram because Lin is in there twice, right? Lindalino, right? Mm-hmm. So, and Latin, there's no Latin translation. But then when you look at it a bit longer, you go, Lin is in there twice Lin and Lin, two Lins, double Lin.
Oh boy!
So he's got all these little code words, and he's calling for a rebel. He talks about how the people of Lindalino rebelled, and they'll rebel again, and they'll kill he almost calls on them to kill the king and all his government. And you're kind of reading this, and then you know why his name wasn't on the
Treason.
book. Yes, sedition, treason, calling for rebellion and all that sort of thing. And actually that one paragraph that one section got taken out by Mott. Mott couldn't publish that. It ended up in the Faulkner edition, which was about a decade later or something like that.
So what kind of a man was he? Was he famous?
Yes, he was. His career, I mean, he was a churchman, and then what happened was he ended up in London. He was actually lobbying on behalf of the Church of Ireland, right, the Anglican Church in Ireland. He was over to lobby for a more favourable tax treatment for the church in Ireland, right? So he was over there in London, and he starts hanging out with the big wigs, right? Literally the big wigs. And in those days, the wits, as they call them, the kind of celebrated people in society, all male, of course, you know, the educated, the politicians, the writers, the journalists, they would hang out in coffee houses. And Swift was hanging out in one or two of the coffee houses, meeting all the guys, and sometimes they'd swap poetry, and sometimes they'd write articles and all that sort of thing. And he became known as the smartest man in the empire, right? So he was well known at that stage.
So there was a certain maybe Oscar Wilde-like quality to him.
Yes.
He was able to pour forth. He was able to be verbose and talk.
Yes.
And be witty.
Be witty, get along with a lot of different people. And ultimately, his ace, his calling card really was he was a great writer. So he got spotted by the government. He started off as a Whig, and then ended up Whig was a political party, and then ended up as a Conservative. Went over to the Tory side, and he got brought in there as effectively the spin doctor for the Tory government from about 1710 to about 1713.
Okay.
He was brought in by a guy called Harley, who was effectively the Prime Minister, and Swift was the spin doctor. He was the press advisor, the special advisor, all these jobs that are there right now.
Yes.
The Mara, the
Mara.
yeah,
from Scrap Saturday.
Yes, from Hawes' time.
PJ,
yeah.
I remember, I met him.
Yeah, and that's what Swift was. And so for a few years, he was top of the heap.
Great.
From an impoverished Dublin background, he was now hanging out with Lord this and Lord that and Sir this and all that sort of thing. All these people who had intergenerational wealth. He wasn't there because of his wealth. He was there because of his brains.
He was obviously, famous for writing Gulliver's Travels, but he was also famous for writing this kind of pamphlet, The Modest Proposal.
Yes, yeah.
And tell us about The Modest Proposal. What was it?
So The Modest Proposal is a call for cannibalism in Ireland. and it was done with a straight face, but we're back to the whole satire thing. If you read it, it calls for, it sets up the scene. First of all, it says, look, we have too many Irish babies, too many people. Everywhere I look on the street, you've got these women with...
And this was at a time when the Irish population was a big population.
Oh, completely. Bigger than it is now.
Oh, much bigger.
Yeah.
So you're talking about upwards of 6 million people living in a country heading towards the famine.
Yes.
But it's pre-famine.
I should say, well, I mentioned the famine earlier on. We're still about 140 years from the famine.
Correct. But
there were many famines.
There were many
the
famines
way.
before that, correct.
So people were absolutely on their uppers. They were very, very poor. People living in shacks and all sorts of very degraded situations. And he came along with a straight face and said, look, we've too many people over here, too many babies, and we've got the rich, these fine families over here, and the rich have got the money and you've got the babies, so why not sell your babies to the rich and they'll make a grand dinner? I mean, baby food. I mean, literally baby food, as in Irish babies.
I have it here. Like he says in the Modest Proposal, a young, healthy child, well nursed, is at a year old a most delicious, nourishing and wholesome food, whether stewed, roasted, baked or boiled. And I make no doubt that it will equally serve as a fricassee or a ragout.
A ragout.
So did this cause scandal?
Well, it did. I mean, it's told with a straight face. Deadpan. But I think certain people got it and certain people didn't. And I think the people he was trying to protect and highlight. I mean, basically what he was saying to the British authority was, you have done everything bad to these Irish people. There's no great moral leap or immoral leap in what you've already done in terms of stealing everything from them and humiliating them and starving them and all. It's no great immoral leap to go and eat their babies as well. You've already entered that particular zone. And so it was really for the authorities to kind of take note. Jesus, we're not doing the best over here. But I think that the Irish population in general, the people who had the babies, understood that this was a satire written on their behalf for their welfare.
So are we to deduce from that then that he was a moral man, a person with a conscience, a person with a sense of social justice?
I think so. I think social justice, yeah, I think so. A moral man, give me a second because there's a few different things in there, right?
Go on, yeah.
Well,
we know the three of us in the marriage.
Yes. There's two ladies going, so you could argue that wasn't a very nice thing to be doing. And but I think so. I think what happened was, I think the longer he didn't want to be in Ireland. I've already said that. He just did not want to be here. Didn't want to be in Dublin. He hated the filth. He hated the attitude. He hated the fight and everything.
What would he have spoken like, Gerry? Would a man like that have spoken like a man from London?
A bit like it. He was definitely of Anglo-Irish stock, right? He was born in Dublin, even though there's a question mark about his birth and his background and all that sort of thing. He ended up being educated in Kilkenny College, which is sometimes described as being the Eton of Ireland. Yeah. Certainly at the time, it was a very, very posh education he got. Then went over to Trinity College, and he, where some young people come out very well educated.
Right.
And
Trinity College, Dublin.
Dublin, yeah. And later on, he ended up in Oxford, all right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So because there was a bit of money in the background, he ended up getting a good education. And that set him up very, very well for life. He then ended up in a house in England as kind of a secretary to a very aristocratic man. Came home, finished his priestly studies, and then ended up back in London, where he became this kind of press advisor type of chap. So you asked about the accent. Well, the one thing for sure was he didn't have a common Irish accent. He wasn't saying begara and all that sort of thing, and he wouldn't have barely spoken a word of Irish, right?
But he wasn't necessarily uber posh England as well.
No, I would say it would be some kind of a upper class Irish accent.
Yeah.
And probably, you know the way
Shane Ross.
Oh,
it's that kind of thing.
Yes.
That kind of, maybe I say, there's a little bit of Irish in me, but, I generally talk like that,
It's very good.
Yeah.
Shane Ross.
Yeah,
no, Shane Ross. But he went to school in England, didn't he? Go to public school in England?
Yes, he did. Yes. So there's that kind of thing, but you also have a little bit of Irish in you as well. I love the Irish, and you say Irish rather than Irish.
That's true.
So there is that kind of. It's an Anglo-Irish West Brit.
It's an Anglo-Irish West Brit type of accent he would have had, and I also sometimes think when people go over to London, they develop kind of a London accent, especially if they're operating in the upper echelons. So I would say his accent changed a small bit when he went over in that direction.
Excuse me, sorry, man of God?
Well, there's often a question mark about that. Of course, he was a priest in the Anglican church, and he was very loyal to the church, and he did his duties there as dean and looked after the cathedral very well and all that sort of thing. But and he preached and all that sort of thing, but some people would even question if he was a Christian at all. There isn't a huge amount, let's say in his writings. He didn't write much about Christianity. He wrote sermons and stuff like that.
No, it's just that I don't associate. I generally don't associate satirists and satirical people with a devout religious faith. Often they're the type of brain that they have.
We just take the piss out of it, is it?
Or question it.
Yes.
And take the piss out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you look at somebody like even Ricky Gervais is quite satirical about this. He questions, he's an atheist, and he questions the whole idea of faith.
Yes.
And I mean, a satirist would easily point out, one of the first things a satirist would point out would be, how come everybody who believes in God happens by complete coincidence to be born in exactly the place that their God exists?
Yes. Yeah.
So like, how come everybody that believes in Muhammad is actually in the place where Muhammad is supposed to be the God of?
Yes.
And all of us people who believe in Jesus Christ, we're all born over here.
Yeah, a remarkable
coincidence, isn't it?
Yeah.
So God just went, I'm choosing Ireland, little bits of America, bits of Germany and Sweden and all that, and lots of South America. I like that. It's warm down there. Right, Muhammad, where would you like? Oh, I'm not going to do Muhammad's voice, but he would like, I'd go to Middle East, and I'll go to the Middle East now.
I like the food over there.
Middle East is good. I like Indian food and all that. And they're Buddhists, forget it. Oh no, I like shish kebab and all that. So I'll take care of them. So it's just a satirist that's often gives religion short shrift. So maybe that's why he didn't have much religious.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I mean, he was the whole time pointing out flaws and inconsistencies and arguments and stuff like that in other people.
Yeah.
Perhaps not too comfortable doing it himself.
It was a difficult time he lived in terms of being a satirist. In other words, he couldn't put his name on things, and you said that he'd have to change his name, and you would risk being pilloried and maybe severely punished and everything. And when you said that, it kind of reminded me a bit about the atmosphere today, particularly in so-called free societies like the United States. I mean, as we do this podcast, we have a joker, a satirist, a comedian, Jimmy Kimmel, who's again under fire.
Yes.
Second time this time from the Trump administration for making a joke about Trump and his wife, and it really puts it in the limelight again, doesn't it? This thing.
Well, this is the whole thing when you're looking at Gulliver's Travels. 300 years have gone by. And some things have changed, and some things are the very, very same, right? And before I got into satirism, Swift had a lot to say. Before I get on to free speech, Swift had a lot to say about war. He had a lot to say about racism. He had a lot to say about colonialisation. A lot to say about effectively human rights. He didn't use these phrases, but he was, the degradation of people. A lot to say about genocide. or a small amount to say about genocide. All that's in Gulliver's Travels. And then when it comes to free speech, definitely he had trouble getting his message out. There's no doubt about that. And he had to be extremely careful. We're now in a time where people get cancelled. They don't get tied up and have their ears cut off and all that sort of thing. But, they do in a kind of a more...
which is a form of excommunication.
True. It is.
It's like a religious fatwa.
Yes. I think what... I feel what's happened the last decade, or maybe slightly more, what concerns me is that we've gone from a time where I feel we could argue about stuff. If you had an opinion and that I didn't agree with, I felt that people, either privately or publicly, could debate that, right? And now we've switched to this almost like an American model, whereby I don't argue your point. I compare you to some other person over here who's totally dislikable, and I say you're like them. So, for example, if you had a concern about immigrants in Ireland, which is totally legitimate if you do, I don't say, well, immigration is good and it's doing this, and you go, well, it's causing this problem as well. We don't have that debate. What I do is I say, you're like the far right people over here, so you're a bit of a fascist, aren't you? So we're losing the ability to debate a particular point, and instead we're avoiding the actual debate and we're just name calling instead.
Correct, and the name calling is there to ascribe a team
Yes.
for us. We're divided into two teams.
Yes.
It was us and them.
Yes.
And
yes.
when two people talk to each other, we're basically finding out as quick as possible, are you with me or against me?
Yes.
Right? So there's no nuance.
No.
Now this is obviously highlighted through social media and everything, but it's not just social media. It's like people now are basically working out, which one are you?
Yes.
And you can't be, it's very difficult to be an amalgam of loads of different cognitively dissonant ideas. You're not allowed that anymore.
No.
You must be either black or white, which is the problem we have.
And it's a real pity, because debate is a great way for society to progress.
It is.
You might arrive into the pub with your idea. End up having a debate with you, and by the time you leave the pub, your idea, it mightn't be changed entirely, but it's evolved a small bit, and so is mine. You know what I mean? And that's the way we
seems
solve
as though
things
the era of debate has kind of been swept by, passed over. I mean, any of my listeners, if you really want to watch some good debate, I urge you to put in Christopher Hitchens into YouTube and watch his various debates against various different people. And not that I want you to say that I want you to watch Christopher Hitchens wiping the floor with people, which he frequently does.
Yeah.
But I want you to see the manner in which the debate is being held. All parties are listening to each other and responding to each other's arguments. And there's no name calling
Yes.
in any of these debates.
Yeah.
And that seems to have gone. Like any debating that I do see in modern media has turned into a bit of a blood sport. I don't know if you've seen these debates where somebody like Mehdi, the guy who started Zateo, goes into a room, let's say, right, and he's a defender of the Palestinian rights, and he goes into a room and he's surrounded in the room by loads of 25-year-old American Republicans and Zionists.
Right.
And they just come up to the table, each one, and they have a go at him.
Right.
And they just start shouting at each other, and he defends. Then the other guy leaves and another fellow would come in. So it's like tag team debating.
Right.
Where he takes them all on. That kind of idea.
Yeah.
But it's more like a blood sport than anything else.
It's generating heat.
Exactly.
Light.
Yeah, it's generating heat and clicks.
And clicks.
Now he's brilliant, but I'm just saying it's sad to see that it's gone into that. So so that's a really interesting a show, Savage Indignation, that you created.
Yeah.
And it's in
Hostcastle on the 20. So hostcastle.ie if anybody's interested.
and people are enjoying it, I presume.
They are, yeah. We get a lot of kind of standing ovations and things like that. You know, it's a lovely show. And I can say that it's not a boast insofar as I wrote it, but then I got enhanced by Dave Munro, as I say, the musician. Then I got enhanced by the actors, Dave McLaughlin, Debbie Barry, and Aisling Coleman. And so what you end up with is this wonderful show. But I just had a certain amount to do with it. You know. And while we're on that subject, I've written a new musical that I'm hoping to get staged in October, which is the 300th anniversary, 28th of October, And I just wondered, do you have any philanthropists listen to this song, to this podcast?
Loads.
Do you?
I am the Philanthropist podcast. They all listen to it.
It's all right. Well, if any of them are out there and they'd like to become a patron of yours, I only need 20 grand to get it staged, So you could drop me an email.
Are you trying to crowdfund?
Yeah, crowdfund. I have a GoFundMe page. Yeah.
Well, what's it called?
Swift ! And it's Gerry Mullins.
Swift ! Gerry Mullins, a GoFundMe page trying to raise money to do this musical.
Yes, yeah. And or you could drop me an email, gmullins@hotmail.com. I accept checks, postal orders.
Yeah. You read them all and you get back to me.
I get back to most of them, yeah.
We were talking about, that's brilliant, Jonathon Swift. And it's great just to find out about him. And so what age did he die in?
He died about the age of 78. He died in 1745.
Wow.
And he lived much longer than most people of his time.
Certainly did.
He was way ahead of his time in terms of all sorts of areas, but one of them was exercise.
Is that right?
People didn't like to exercise too much in those days. No point in wasting energy. He wanted to exercise every day. He was known for, on a rainy day, if he couldn't get out and walk a few miles, he'd run up and down the stairs over in the deanery over here at St. Patrick's Cathedral.
I think it's a lot. Excuse me, sorry for interrupting again, Gerry, because it's just on this very subject. I think some people of that time, you may be able to correct me, but I think some people of that time had a jaundiced view of exercise.
Yes.
One of the reasons I think they had a jaundiced, among others, was that, believe it or not, I think they had a what you might call a Trumpian view of exercise. Do you know what that is?
No idea.
Trump has a view which would be seen as very archaic and outdated, that we all have an innate and battery in us.
Right.
That battery has a finite time. And when it runs out, and there ain't nothing you can do about it.
So you have a set number of heartbeats.
Doesn't matter what you do. That's why he eats the burgers. Because he believes, I don't know what the battery date is, but I have a battery date, and it doesn't matter what I do in the meantime. So that's why he doesn't do any exercise. None. He does no exercise because he does not play golf. He gets into a golf cart and is driven to the next ball. He does not do any. He doesn't walk. He does not run. He never goes to the gym. He eats fast food the whole time, and he drinks 10 Diet Cokes a day.
God.
But he believes that, I think, like a lot of people 200 or 300 years ago, because a lot of the things he believes are from 200 or 300 years ago. Things like being a king and stuff, He loves that as well. But he believes that we don't need exercise, that we all have a battery life.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Swift did it.
Swift was into his exercise when nobody else was. He was into doing things like washing his hands and washing every day, right? Because I suppose people didn't have much access to water and stuff like that. You weren't going to waste it washing your hands. So he tended to be clean, and he didn't like a lack of hygiene. He tried to eat very healthily. He'd eat a lot of fruit in the initial years. Then he had to go off it because he had a particular. He felt it was aggravating. He had many years disease, which is kind of a pain in his inner ear that made him dizzy and stuff like that. But he tried to eat healthily. He tried to walk and ride his horse regularly. He tried to stay hygienic, and he got to up around 78 years of age.
Great.
And by the way, before we leave the subject, because in case you're about to, some people believe his greatest legacy is mental health in Ireland. So he believed very strongly in mental health. There was no mental health institute in Ireland, and so when he died, he was quite a rich man when he died. He left everything to build Ireland's first ever mental health facility, which is St. Patrick's Hospital.
Oh my God,
right?
St. Pat's.
Yeah. And he wrote a poem about it as well. He said, I leave whatever wealth I have to build a home for fools and the mad, and show with one satiric touch no nation needed so much. This nation I leave as my debtor, Ireland. I hope they soon find somebody better. But we never did. He is the single greatest philanthropist, donor, contributor to mental health in Ireland. Nobody in those 300 years has given more than Swift towards mental health. And he had an idea for mental. He didn't just give the money. He designed the hospital. He wrote up the charter. He wrote up how it should be operated. It should, and this is another one. He said it should be no religion, no creed, and it should be for everyone, regardless of their class. Right? So, and even now, to this day, we're still struggling with the whole idea that a hospital over here should be for one religion and a hospital over there should be for another religion. He, as a churchman, was saying, no, everybody gets treated in the same way, regardless of their class or their creed. And his three, he felt that there should be 3 doctors in this hospital: Dr. Diet, Dr. Quiet, and Dr. Merriman. Yeah. In other words, people need, when they have
good
mental
food,
distress,
they need
diet,
quiet, and they need fun.
And you see, he had come from London, where he had been a chaplain in the Bedlam Hospital. You know where we get the word Bedlam? It's the Bethlehem Hospital. And what they had done over there was they housed all these mad people. Sorry, we have to say mad people. People who had mental distress. And more or less tied them up and kept them in filthy conditions. And then charged people to come in and look at them. And they were like a zoo. It was like a human zoo. And people on a Sunday afternoon would get dressed up and for a bit of entertainment go down and have a look at these mad jokes. You know, people tied to the wall and screaming and shouting and all that sort of thing. And so Swift was chaplain there, and he realised how it shouldn't be done. And then he comes over to Ireland, and 30 years later, when he's got all this money and he's doing up his will and all that sort of thing, he says, no, we're not going to have it like it was in London. We're going to do it different over here.
Wow, very interesting. And that's brilliant. St. Pat's.
Yeah.
Wow. Fun fact, random fact as well, just words coming from other words and everything. Do you know where the word goodbye comes from?
No idea.
Right. I was fascinated to hear this. One of the things we use most in our lives, goodbye. Do you know where it comes from? It comes from the expression used around the time that Swift would have been alive. People used to part with each other by saying, God be with you. Then it turned into God be with you.
Yeah.
God be with you. God be with you. And God became good. Goodbye.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. God be with you.
So the good comes from God, and the bye is be
with you.
With you. Really?
Yeah.
We live and learn.
Yeah. Mad.
So that's where we're going to have to leave it for this part of my chat with Gerry Mullins. What happened next in the interview was very unexpected and knocked me for 6 a bit. Gerry had done an awful lot of research for a project called Dublin Nazi Number 1. And in that time, he was able to research a lot about my family, my grandfather, who fought for the Germans in the Second World War. He was not a Nazi, by the way. And how he met my grandmother, who was a nurse on the island of Jersey during the Second World War. He knew information that I didn't even know, and it's absolutely fascinated me. So if you want to hear that, we're going to put it out as a bonus episode sometime during the week. Thanks, of course, to Hum Finance for getting on board. Thank you, Hum. Thanks for listening. Bonus episode of Gerry next week. We'll be back with a full episode next week, this day next week. Take it handy. See you then.
The Mario Rosenstock Podcast. Thanks to Hum. Finance made easy when you shop tech, electrical, appliances, kitchens and much more. Flexify Europe Limited, trading as Hum, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.